Well, there's one thing we know, and that's that the mainstream media and the sociopathic elite control freaks are losing the battle. But what concerns me the most is that they're becoming desperate. They may be crazy enough, such as to go ahead and use a nuclear weapon in South Carolina to instigate a war in Syria, or some form of disaster, push us into World War III. So if there's one person I wanted to ask on what we could do to protect ourselves in such a scenario and protect our families, it's Dr. Edward Group from globalhealingcenter.com. He's joining us right now to talk about how to prepare yourself for any disaster, protect your family with some extremely free, inexpensive, cheap, excellent ways to protect yourselves. If there was some type of incident, and there's already Fukushima going on, so we already have to protect ourselves, but if there was a nuclear incident or threats of a nuclear war, what would you say is the best way to protect yourself from that and other disasters?
I mean, just considering the fact that we've had chemtrails and we've had Fukushima, which is going out of control right now. I mean, we're getting toxic iodine, iodine 31, which is radioactive iodine in plumes coming over, and it's raining in different areas. We're seeing in some areas a 48% increase in infant deaths right now. So, I mean, I think we're already in a situation right now where everybody in the world needs to protect themselves and should be protecting themselves. I mean, what happens is that iodine of those radioactive materials actually shut down the thyroid gland, and the thyroid gland is your main immune system regulator, your hormone regulator, and it stops the thyroid from producing T3 and T4, which are the thyroid hormones. So there's a good possibility. I mean, we have nuclear power plants that are exactly the same as Fukushima along the East Coast, and there's been a lot of talk, just like you said, about a situation that might happen. If you look at the projected toxic effects of Fukushima in the Pacific Ocean within the next 10 years, it shows the whole ocean being contaminated with radioactive waste. So I think everybody, no matter who you are, you absolutely need to protect yourself against radiation. And not only radiation, but just how that radiation is combined with the other toxins in the air. And interestingly enough, who does radiation affect the most? It affects the babies, the pregnant mothers, which are severely iodine deficient anyway, and it affects the older senior population. Now, we've talked about in the past, and Alex and you guys have talked about the population control agenda, which is a major factor, considering the fact that you can create infertility, you can create sterility, you can kill off all the babies coming in, as well as kill off the senior citizens. So to keep it simple, I mean, there's lots of things people can do to protect themselves against not only radiation damage, but also harmful compounds such as fluoride and bromine. And the reason I bring those up, because when we talk about radiation, the thyroid gland, whenever you have excess fluoride in the thyroid gland, it fights, or other halogens such as bromine, they fight for the receptor sites of iodine in the thyroid gland. So iodine actually is one of the #1 things that I think everybody should have in their medicine cabinet at home. And don't just buy a little bit, stock up on it, because if there's going to be a disaster, you're talking about a worldwide shortage of iodine practically within the first 48, 72 hours.
Now, let me ask you a question, though. You bring up a really good point here, that even though we're facing some type of nuclear disaster maybe, or a false flag or whatever, we're already facing massive amounts of radiation. We're already looking at chemtrails with these toxic materials. Our daily lives are a bombardment of disaster in some ways. And you talk about iodine. Now, my thing is, I know the best form of it is nascent iodine. And I also know that there's the iodine that's FDA approved and stuff like that, that I wouldn't want to take even if there was a nuclear disaster in some cases. So what do you think is the best way to do it without destroying your body and your family?
Well, what you're going to get through the military, or what you're going to get through the government, is you're going to get potassium iodide tablets. Now, those potassium iodide tablets, you know, in a severe situation, they will work, but you got to remember that a lot of times those tablets are made with toxic fillers and binders and excipients. And not only that, the body has to take an extra step to break that potassium iodide down into a usable atomic form of iodine. That's why I recommend always going with a detoxified or a nascent form of iodine or an atomic form of iodine, which is going to be utilized practically immediately by the body. And that's going to neutralize and protect you from the damaging effects of the radioactive iodine, which is iodine 131. Now, you also have other toxic toxic ingredients that are being released, such as cesium, cesium-137, cesium-134, strontium, and some of the things that help detoxify the body of these other radioactive materials are bentonite clay. You know, that can be taken internally, or you can use bentonite clay with a Epsom salt bath. That has been used to pull out radiotropic toxic compounds from the body. Zeolites, you know, I would always keep a bag of zeolites around too. I mean, you can buy those. You can look at OMRI approved zeolite supplements online. Number one, like I said, is iodine. Number two, have some zeolites around. That's what they used in Russia. Also, the bentonite clay is a thing that I always use and keep around. Another thing that's really effective for detoxifying radiation is activated charcoal. If you look at the military suits, the nuclear biological suits, and if you look at the radiation filters, they all usually contain activated charcoal. Activated charcoal can be taken internally, and it's really good at absorbing radiation from the body, toxic radiation from the body. And then eating a very healthy, clean diet, you know, spirulina is effective, chlorella, the clean chlorella, any type of super green foods. Make sure that if you're eating any type of kelp or anything, though, it comes from North Atlantic and not from the Pacific Ocean where everything is already contaminated.
Definitely, but these are things also that you can utilize in your daily life. And that's kind of what this whole session is also about, informing people on what they can do now to protect themselves later. Because as far as I understand, I mean, nascent iodine you can take every day. I use bentonite clay. I put it on my face, and it just extracts toxic material from your body. I use zeolites on a daily basis, oregano oil. All of these things I'm using now to protect myself later. So I think it's better to be prepared now than to be freaking out and scared later to build up overall immunity. Because another thing is, Fukushima, for example, they'll deny all day long until their graves that Fukushima is perfectly fine and that we're not being blasted with massive amounts of radiation, even though the scientific community agrees that, yeah, we are. The tests show it down. They shut down the calculations for it all. So ultimately, it pays to be taking these things on a daily basis to be prepared sooner than later, not just to put it in your medicine cabinet for that day, but to start taking control of your health now is the ultimate survivability, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, and that goes with all the degenerative diseases and everything that we're facing, with the amount of toxins that we're dealing with in the air on a daily basis, the amount of toxins we're dealing with in the water supply on a daily basis, the toxins that are consumed in foods on a daily basis, the toxins in beverages on a daily basis, all the microbes that we're exposed to every single day, all the, not only the harmful ionizing radiation, but also the electromagnetic radiation from cell phones and cell phone towers and everything else. The solution is to take a proactive approach and start detoxifying your body right now, because all these things affect your immune system, and they lower your ability to fight off degenerative disease and lower your ability to fight off cancer. So what everybody should do is do regular intestinal cleanses, because all the toxins ultimately enter through your intestinal tract, whether you eat radiated food or, depending on what you expose yourself to.
Definitely. Now, let me ask you something. We're seeing so many victories. Earlier, I talked about how we essentially stopped Obama and his cronies from pushing us into World War III. Yesterday, I cut a video about the Monsanto Protection Act, which gives full immunity to Monsanto, and how we pretty much destroyed it with information last time, and we're going to do it again. We're just seeing so many sweeping victories for overall international relations, just protecting the people instead of the crony elite. We're seeing personal health freedom victories, do you see us just absolutely overcoming the system and just beating this down through the spread of information with the rise of the real media in place of the phony, dead, decapitated mainstream media?
Well, I think that's the main goal. I mean, that's what we're all working towards. I mean, I think we're at a crucial point right now, and we're getting close, if we're not already there, to the tipping point. I think that there's just a real hardcore fight going on right now between the good and the bad. And who knows how far it's going to go. But one thing for sure is that people are becoming more educated every single day, and they're actually seeing it with their own eyes. They're starting to understand that, hey, I've been going to the doctor and I'm not getting better. Pharmaceuticals are not working. You know, what we need is we need to start releasing more free energy technologies, and we need to start demanding from the government more of the things that we're all into. And, you know, as time goes on, Anthony, I'm definitely seeing a change. And I think that people are seeing a change. And I'm hoping, just like you and everybody else, that we'll be able to live and see that day whenever we're able to have a government that doesn't approve chemicals and doesn't approve toxic pharmaceuticals and doesn't allow nuclear power plants and doesn't allow the production of carcinogenic chemicals and doesn't allow GMOs to be existent on the planet. And we have a planet that is clean and a planet that is, you know, producing with happy and healthy people. I mean, the thing with Fukushima, too, is we've had solutions for that. I mean, the Russians have developed, and not only the Russians, but high-tech scientists have developed ways to neutralize radiation fallout and radiation from spent uranium. And they've sent that technology over to Fukushima within 3 weeks of the time that the tsunami hit. And none of that technology is even being used. So
that's the sad reality of it. It's like we have these answers. We just need to inform the people. Everyone listening right now is getting it. They're absorbing this information. And I think we are seeing massive victories. That's kind of the overall theme of tonight. It's like, yeah, there's a bunch of bad stuff going on, but at the same time, it's just distracting from how much we are winning and how much we are dominating this entire paradigm. And I think ultimately being prepared on an individual basis is also extremely empowering. And the sociopaths at the top absolutely hate that. So thanks so much, Dr. Groot, for expounding on this knowledge, revealing this information. I'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me on.
Ultimately, what it comes down to is Obama, his affiliates, his handlers, they're afraid of us. They are afraid of the real media. They're afraid of you. They're afraid of anyone with a brain that has a computer, a megaphone, or even a typewriter for that matter. It's essential that together we continue to push this information and to support the platforms that are doing this. That is why I'm here and I'm supporting InfoWars with StoryLeak and joining the InfoWars network and supporting with Alex and doing the video reports. So I do encourage everyone, if you appreciate the real media, if you want to maintain your liberties, if you want your First Amendment, if you want your Second Amendment, if you want to have any ability to do anything or be called a journalist for that matter, if you want to be able to have free speech on the internet without having to join the Obama administration, support real media. I encourage you personally to go to InfoWarsShop.com, join up at PrisonPlanet.tv. You can share it with 10 people, and it's like $5. I encourage you to go, join up, check out Infowars.com, check out my site, StoryLeak.com. Anthony Gucciardi signing off. It's up to you to spread the word. It's up to you to make a difference.
Now you can watch Alex Jones live at Infowars.com/show.
You'll find links to all of our content there and a free 15-day trial for Prison Planet TV.
You can also browse the network, the InfoWars Nightly News,
and over 60 movies and documentaries all together in one place.
You can watch the Alex Jones radio show live as it happened.
So check it out, Infowars.com/show.